We have Swyx here with us at Laude Cast.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining us. Swyx, I read your newsletter and I read Alex Heath's newsletter, and those are the two that I read. People ask me, what newsletters should I read? And I say, read Swyx and read Alex Heath, and that's all you need. So thank you for making such a high quality newsletter that I don't need nearly anybody else to round it out.
You know, people were complaining about how you have to be on Twitter to stay up to date. And actually, I think there's a lot of work you can do on automated curation. So Alex is more sort of traditional, and we met each other at a media dinner recently, and he's phenomenal. I automated it. Like, a lot of it is AI slop, but I read everything.
Yeah, well, you automated the top of the funnel, but I think you still...
I cut, I delete, I update.
I don't see what you do as actually automation. I mean, I think you automated the top of the funnel, what are the trends so that you can decide. I think it's also a very large flex how frequently you're like, there's nothing interesting today. And then you're like, oh, here's like 3 things that, 6 years ago would have been the news of the quarter or a year. And you're like, that doesn't deserve me saying anything except nothing interesting. It's like, it's a strong flex to everybody that you say nothing interesting today except these garbage. And it's just a new state-of-the-art model.
I think it's a function of my business model that I don't require you to open my newsletter. I don't need you to click. I don't care. I just care, are you going to remember this today? Is this a day today? But also, there's a bit of historical irony embedded in it, because obviously it's a reference to King George on July 4th, 1776, when he wrote "Nothing much happened today."
Obviously. Is that obvious to everybody? Not obvious to me, but I'm bad at history, except Churchill.
I want to be wrong, because I think it would be funny to be like, well, the biggest thing in the world happened today, and you wrote nothing was happened today. Because you're going to miss stuff. It's okay.
I like it. Yeah. It's both humble and deeply insulting to everybody that's listed in that day that you say, nothing happened today.
I think that is an issue. And so I would want to change my format a little bit. And
I don't think you should change it. I think it's fine. I think I'll get over it.
Yeah.
Okay, special thing. First, fortune cookies. Oh, these are real fortune cookies. We're going to tell each other our fortunes.
If you don't like your fortune, you can re-roll, yeah.
Re-roll, okay. We can trade too, if yours is more appropriate for me. Your beard will continue to be prosperous.
No, I don't have a beard, yeah. All right, you go, I go?
You go.
You will ship your research. That's nice.
You will open the frontier.
Wow. Okay, that's solid. That's really insanely good.
Maybe we both will ship research and open frontier.
I don't do as much research. I do meta research, right? The whole I am the reward model, not the generative model, and that's okay.
Yeah, you are the reward model. I thought I wanted to be the reward model. I was jealous of you for a chapter.
Aren't you?
Aren't I still jealous? A little bit.
No. No, I don't think you have anything to be jealous about.
It's a nice scarf, at least.
Thank you for giving it to me. I think you are a reward model in some respects. Everything you do.
That's true. I do literally give money away to people that do a good job at shipping their research.
Yeah, I think you're trying to spike the distribution of output that gets recognized and in some way affects what gets produced downstream. And I think society cannot support too many of us. There should not be that many. But I do think that some amount is helpful for curating the noise, and your whole job is to be very single-minded at it.
Yeah, and we have complementary modalities. So you're verifiable rewards, and I'm human preference or something.
Yeah, you can stretch this analogy too far. But I do think that there are multiple layers of this is useful but not monetizable. And that I'll go there. And as far as Laude Ventures goes, you care about the money. Obviously, you also fund the research. But I think there is some amount of broadly interesting techniques and trends that I will cover that you will not, because you cannot. There's no one person attached to this. You need a person. You need an org. I don't. I can just take 10 different things that they're happening all at once, synthesize them, and go, everyone's facing this. Good enough for me.
Yeah, nice. So you've nailed the newsletter and a 6,000 person conference and growing?
Yeah.
What's the next frontier?
That's interesting. I was very scared of starting a conference business because conference businesses are low TAM. They're low margin, they're horrible, never do events. They're sort of poor in terms of like the cash and like the industry status. It's like a low status job. And like the moment there's a recession, you're in trouble. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. There's a $13 billion publicly listed conference company called Informa that I recently found that makes 1 point something billion in revenue just doing conferences.
Wow.
And I'm like, whoa, if I grow up, do I become that? I recently discovered that the kind of conference that I run, that we run here, that we're at, these are called what they call festivals, sort of like very content-driven, knowledge-driven, all that stuff. 5 times larger than that business is the data markets business that they run. So I'm suddenly very interested in data markets.
Like the conferences are part of the business model?
It might be phase 2. I never signed up to be like a conference guy. I think I just like, to me, when I
just stumbled upon a 6,000 person.
The eventual vision is to be Industry NeurIPS. As much as NeurIPS' atomic unit is the paper and like the grad students, and it's a meat market for hiring grad students. Like sort of research has moved from industry to sort of production or deployment or whatever, and it should have something of equal stature to that. NeurIPS is a 40-year-old conference. I think we can get there in 10.
That's great. I like that.
Again, I never wanted to be a conference guy. I think conferences suck. They're extremely stressful. You simultaneously have 200 people working for you, and you work for 200 people. And like, there's just a lot of stress that is involved that is not, and it's not like a recurring SaaS business, you know. There's like, it's a very, very fundamentally different economics. So at some day I hope to step back. I have hired a GM who will someday be CEO.
Operationally, it's a grind, you're saying. That's why they suck. I mean, I agree with you. I actually have always cared a lot about events and conferences.
The thing I want to start is the industry, right? So 3 years ago, I wrote the AI engineering blog post that sort of kickstarted this whole thing. And I think it was kind of like the right framing for the systems work that had always been happening, always been true, that has been happening here and in all universities around the world. I think it needed sort of a brand upgrade or whatever. But otherwise, there's a lot of like timeless principles that always mattered. But I think it took some curation, some mix of branding, some mix of production quality, whatever you call it, to get AI engineering to what it is today. And I think it's going to still keep going. Like I think actually we're like nowhere near done. But I do think like probably the conference is a means to an end of like, let's just get a ton of really high quality, well-produced content out there for free on the internet. And in many ways, I just run a very expensive YouTube channel that just does that.
Expensive to whom?
To my sponsors.
Yeah, okay, we're good. Yeah, I mean, that's, expensive to somebody. High value.
Yeah, but like all the content's free. It's like...
Yeah. The thing that's been dawning on me a little bit today is that when I was a PhD in 2007 to 2013, when we started Databricks, there was this underdog white space. There was this underdog opportunity to double down on research that ships, as we say it now. At the time, it was like impact research, or just research that is focused on impact. And that's why I teamed up with Dave Patterson, because he had a legacy of like his 40 years was the way he tells his stories, the way he behaved, the outcomes he had were all about, can you get your research insights into the market? Can you get them into industry? Dave didn't do startups, but I did. And so I kind of always wanted to go back and capture on this inefficiency in the market, which was researchers have the greatest potential of anybody, I thought, to go do Databricks, to go do startups, to build product that can have billions, trillion-dollar market caps. I always believed that, and I believe that there was a like I said, a market opportunity to build around that, and that's what Laude is. But today I've been like it's occurring to me this next layer of the onion, which is, can you instead of seeing it as just market cap and product, in the world of AI, where AI as a technology is rewriting pillars of society, like education, like academia itself, like civic discourse, and I think AI is going to be a whole nother turn of the crank on that. And so now the word that I've been using, and I don't know if it's the right word for it, is power. like political power. Money is hard power, but you can also have influence. People have power and they move from one lab to the next, which is the whole thing right now, right? Like people are like flittering around a year at each of the top. They're just like rotating across the top 3 labs every 6 months.
Publication by diffusion.
Yeah, exactly. So there's this new thing that researchers aren't just the greatest at going and having impact by building companies. They're actually also the greatest at going and changing the world through impact by other power mechanisms. Like money is one of them, but so is political influence, so policy, so is media. And so like I'm noticing PhDs a lot more interested in speaking to you and speaking to Alex and like getting famous on Twitter, because getting famous is like a proxy for a type of power, but so is political influence. So it's like a lot of people have a shit ton of power without actually being famous at all. So, and that's like a landscape that I'm quite new to. I mean, I knew one of the like power through building a billion-dollar company or $10 billion, $100 billion company. Now I know that kind of power, but power to influence the way that my kids' future is going to play out with the education system, that one is like kind of new to me. And I'm starting to see that researchers have the potential to be some of the most powerful people on the planet. And like, I think we need to wake up and pave that path the way that I've really tried to beat the drum for paving the path to doing big companies. Yeah. Because I also believe they happen to be the most promising candidates in terms of they're pragmatic, they're evidence-based, they tend to be actually fairly like balanced and diverse in their moral compass. Like they have fairly strong moral compasses.
They're grounded.
Yeah. They're very grounded, but like often utilitarian-ish, but not like a religiously utilitarian in some like philosophical sense. They're just pragmatic. And so if I had to pick a type of persona to sort of bet my daughter's futures on, now I'm biased, I would make it AI researchers. And that feels a little weird, but teaching me and everybody else how to manage power, which now almost the first one that comes to mind is influence through media. And so like, because Twitter is such a strong platform and other platforms. So yeah, I'm curious your reaction to that. Does that resonate with you?
Yes, it does resonate. The typical pattern is some industry magnate wins at life, and then the second thing they do is always they buy a newspaper, right?
The first thing they do is buy a yacht?
Maybe, I don't know if they're very ill-advised, but yes. So like Bezos, Washington Post, whatever, right? The other thing that influences my thinking a lot is the Michael Church model of social class. Michael Church has this theory of social class that Alex Danko and Venkatesh Rao have all written about that basically says like there's basically only like 3 ladders in society and human civilization. One is which is like you're working for money. 2 is you're working for influence, and 3 you're working for power. Really like the people who are sort of barbarians and understand how to wield power can work at a level above influence and above money, and similar to the influence people for the other rungs as well. So like once you understand social dynamics in that respect, you can understand kind of like the tier list or the power list of like different individuals on different ladders, which I think is a very useful framework for understanding those things. Let me sort of recurse back down to CAIS, researchers and all that. One of my most interesting experiences at a workshop, I don't remember which conference this was, but there was a workshop on how to tweet for researchers.
That's
and
good.
They were like, this is a critical part of your job, which is you have to promote your work. And like, it's beneath everyone, but actually it's not. You kind of have to figure that out. And I do think that I've seen some people graduate from that school of like self-promotion, let's call it very bluntly, but also just calling attention in efficient ways, because most people's abstracts are horrendous, unreadable blobs of just blah. If you can just like sort of simmer it down, like make it fit our ADD brains, I think it's better for everyone, kind of. Just make sure you have the substance to back it up. But like substance and style, people who are sort of full of themselves maybe tend to assume they're anti-correlated, but I think they're at best orthogonal, maybe somewhat correlated as well, especially for some of the best researchers, like the ones that you have. So like I do think that that's one of those things where, yeah, we should give researchers the power to do this. Sometimes independent media, like the one I run, helps them, because then like they don't have to do all the work. And I think that's very helpful. I would say the one place where I start to disagree maybe or diverge from you is the relative role of the researcher versus the engineer. Every great researcher needs like an army of small little products engineers, platform engineers, research engineers to enable the researcher to do what they do. Otherwise, they would just not be nowhere near as effective.
Oh, yeah. We should have like a engineer versus researcher showdown. Also, I ate half of my cookie while you were talking.
My other side says your null hypothesis was wrong.
Oh.
That's nice.
Oh, my other side says what his first side said. So I assumed they all have the same thing on the two sides. I would like to read another one and eat another one, now that I know how tasty they are. Questions from the audience are allowed. Parth, we were talking about power.
I thought it was interesting that you guys touched on that from the perspective of, I mean, you pointed out the example of AI researchers going to different labs and like publication by diffusion is an example of soft power. I was thinking of it a little more broadly too, though. There's different types of power of like, we were talking about when we talked on like decision making of like power being concentrated in a few labs, and that influences both policy decisions, but also models being gate kept and only say not released to the general public. There's like soft power in that. I was curious if you meant this generically. You said AI researchers should be the people with the soft power. And I'm just curious if you think that's a generally true statement. As then, why do you think that's a bad idea for when it happens in the labs? Do you think it just shouldn't be concentrated, or? Well,
if I had to pick the closed labs versus, I don't know, the oil industry to have all the power, I would pick Anthropic. If I had to pick not a concentration of power over a concentration of power, I would pick not a concentration of power. I think the oil industry is kind of an apt like parallel here to a lot of concentration into an industry that at the time had done something that gave a lot of leverage to humanity, and they had like a concentration of control over that resource for humanity. And so engineered intelligence is the current one. Yeah, I mean that's my read on it. I agree with a lot of things. I agree with Dario on a lot of things. And one that I vehemently disagree with him on is that it's too dangerous to just do things in the open. I think it can be dangerous to do. It is dangerous if you just patently say everything has to be open. There are clearly like lines you have to draw. But the Anthropic line so far, at least in the behavior that they manifest, is like it's anti-open. And that's where I strongly disagree. But on many other elements, I actually think he's like fairly well reasoned. The Anthropic thing in particular is interesting. And speaking of micro religions, is that another type of power I think is eloquence and inspiration. And having grown up as a Jehovah's Witness, there's like real power in people who control a narrative, and where the narrative really gets into people's brains, and you have a lot of people that are marching truly in the same direction, and even like repeating a narrative that doesn't even necessarily sound like their words always. It's a fascinating trade-off because to take the judgment out of it, it works. Like the objective function is going to matter a lot if you're going to do a good thing for the world or a bad thing. But war is another way that catalyzes this. Like economies function, like are more productive. People tend to get on board when there's a war. Like war is another expression of this power, where a wartime leader, I mean, Trump's messed that up pretty significantly, but like it is a platform that politicians have used to catalyze a lot of
CEOs.
A lot of support. Yeah. So I don't know, that leadership element, like captivating and like deeply getting people to follow you like lemmings almost. Like, and again, there's like a spectrum of where it's healthy and unhealthy, but it's a form of power for sure.
And it's largely, I guess, maybe how political power is built to some extent.
Interesting.
I guess I was going to follow up on this point of like, you were talking about like this being a good example of power, if we can believe in their objective function. It's hard to trust an objective function that's kind of a black box, which is maybe why we want more democratized versions of this power. Do either of you see a mechanism for this in AI specifically? Or like, what is the way through which we're going to move away from the concentration of power in the few frontier labs that we have right now?
How do we defend democracy in the context of AI?
Yeah, where we're supposed to trust the objective functions of a few people, that I don't necessarily see a strong reason to do so.
Yeah, break the scaling laws. You're on it.
Break the scaling laws.
Because like the bitter lesson necessarily concludes in the concentration of power right now.
Yeah,
it does.
You need to completely change the slope of scaling laws.
But we can't do that.
Why not?
Well, okay. I mean,
You're talking to the guy.
What I mean is if the bitter lesson's true. So if you take the counter hypothesis and you're trying to prove that it's not, that there is exploratory research that will be able to like have a steeper slope than more scaling loss, which I also personally believe, or I believe it's a totally fine, it's the right bet to make. It's our alpha if we're going to do research. So yeah, I agree. Like go for breaking, like try to break the scaling laws.
There's no version of the current paradigm results in anything else other than complete concentration of everything.
Are you bearish on any attempts to make it a frontier open source model that follow the current trends of the models we know today?
I think it's a question of funding and like people's marketing strategies more than, more than any current paradigm. Like, scaling laws are king. If you can bend them, you win. If not, then the existing powers get bigger.
Short of legislation, which we wouldn't bet on.
Short of nationalizing the labs.
Or antitrust that would, traditionally like Bell Labs being broken up. There have been antitrust, not that this administration would do it, but in the past, there's been a policy hammer that has been used to disintermediate concentration of power. But that's not something we can all apply. Okay, second question.
Okay, yeah,
Melissa.
Thanks for the interesting talk. I guess like back to like the topic of conference and paper a little bit. Like, what do you think is like the role of peer review conference right now? Because right now when people write like AI paper, a lot of it is sort of just like, people would just like archive it. And then people are happy if it's like, getting a lot of attraction on like Twitter. And then like, there are a lot of like impactful papers that are like not accepted into a conference as well. So I guess like to you guys, what is the role of peer review conference? And then also like, how do we define the impact of paper now in like this world where like things are moving super fast?
First of all, is AI Engineer World's Fair peer reviewed?
No.
How's selection work?
We work with them. They do the peer review.
Oh.
And then we award the industry highlights.
Oh, well then it is.
And then they come.
You said no, you mean yes.
So the papers, but 90% of my conference is not papers.
Oh, well, you have a peer-reviewed element to it. What, 90% of your conference is?
We have selection committees, but it's not fully peer-reviewed. So actually, I've been pitching a bunch of academics, zero peer review or complete AI peer review, like take the human out of the loop. And everyone has been like kind of positive.
Positive response, you mean?
Yes.
What's the rationale?
Because humans are very arbitrary and bad and lazy.
At peer review?
Yes. Again, scaling laws. The number of submissions are going like this. The number of reviewers are going like this. Like, it's broken. The whole thing is broken.
What about using AI for the first few rounds and then still using humans at the last
layer one,
round?
layer two, yeah. Absolutely, right? But like, you will desk reject a bunch of things that a human might have accepted, but like you would probably be more consistent if you laid out a bunch of rubrics and then just follow them. That's a theory. No one's actually like done that, but I think that people are very supportive of that. I think ultimately what you're trying to get at is industry impacts, and that's ultimately citations. And really, peer review is just a first draft proxy of what citations you're going to get. Hopefully, there's many ways to get citations. You don't actually have to publish. I think archive as an institution and a preprint and all that. Obviously, like something that Open Frontiers is very keen on is like the whole prestige and establishment of publishing your research in general is under threat. And I do think that we need alternative methods of surfacing that kind of impact early, because that's what people need in their research. And also it's what we as a society want for good ideas to spread more. So I think the sort of industry has kind of moved past the peer review paradigm, and we don't know what's next. And we have a lot of options. My thing is one option, but so is Twitter. Who knows? And so is Laude.
Yes. Well, I guess a follow-up question to that is that if like getting more citation and traction is the reward function, would that sort of like incentivize, like, for example, grad student to work on problem that's only relevant right now? Whereas like for grad school, we're supposed to, or like not supposed to, but it would be great if students work on like problems that are relevant in the future. Like that could be relevant in 5 years, which like it's hard to see those signal right now. If you work on those problems.
I think we've always had that basically. I don't think that improving the signal generation in the current time frame changes the students' fundamental desire whether or not they want to cater towards more near-term needs versus more long-term needs, right? Like Parth is just going to work on his thing regardless, and he knows the trade-off, and he's decided to do it.
Yeah, but Parth is particularly principled or like I think the value system of the institution to which you belong does bias you. So if the institution values and promotes like your advisor and such promotes H-index as a objective function, then
I guess maybe I'm saying like that's not changed in the last 30 years, right? Like it's more the same.
Yeah, well, it has because well, first of all, it's dying because the conference system blew up and people care at the top schools care a lot less about H-index than they used to. And so that's one of the most radical ways it's changed. It's sort of on its back foot, the citation count already. And then this movement of the Ship Your Research group, that like Jan Stoika school of thought, which is like you measure your success through the adoption of whatever your idea was. So in product, essentially in product, either open source product or like for pay company startup product. Those I think are the new kind of gold standards of impact for a growing percentage of systems and AI researchers, and especially AI. AI blew it open, and it was like increasing it for systems researchers at top schools. I think the goal of research has always been to get the idea out there. The utility that a researcher gets is to be given credit for coming up with the idea, for having the idea, like for making hard choices like Parth did. And, you know, like you were sitting on like, do I want to do the benchmark? Do I want to go after more technique? And you had conversations with a bunch of people. You made a choice. You kind of took a bet. You made a risk. You took some risk. You made a bet, and that you should get rewarded if the idea, like what you landed on, the like putting yourself out there. That's what every paper is like an idea that you spend 1 to 5 months of your life on. You put yourself into it, and you see, does it have impact? Does it change anybody's minds about it? Do people build on it? Does it turn into product? Does it change? Ultimately, it has to like change the world somehow. And that's what we call impact in our community. So I think that's always been the goal. And the way we used to do it with these 15-page, 2-column LaTeX papers is like should be donezo. There's a place for them. Fine, we can still write them in certain cases, but they shouldn't be the default standard anymore. The default should be blog posts or basically tweets, whatever gets people to notice, like fastest, and gets the most people to be able to see the most ideas, enough ideas so that we can filter for the good ones. And, you know, we're going really fast right now, so it has to be a leaner mechanism. And then I think we need to rewrite the way we measure it with that, working backwards from that. So H-index is the broken way to measure it. Building companies downstream is a really good way to measure it. So who's built a unicorn? That's like an easy one. Who has an open source project that became like a Harbor or Apache Spark level success? Or, you know, Raise. So you can clearly pick big winners in open source. Those are great metrics. Those are very sparse reward function though, right? So we need like the thing between those big obvious ones, like I made a unicorn, and I guess impressions on your tweet then you broach into influence or like FOMO, like you really want the substance to be evaluated, which was peer review got you, but just blowing up on Twitter isn't always that useful either, because you can do like reward hacking on that. It doesn't necessarily impact if you get a lot of, and like ads on YouTube are a perfect example of this. A lot of people with podcasts pay for a shit ton of like that impression count. It's you can sort of sell out on the substance in order to influence. So it's not fame or influence only. It's like a very high dimensional, hard thing to capture, I think. But we need to keep working on this like really hard. Third question, make it short. My strongest skill is answering concisely.
This is actually more of a Swyx question. So, okay, we did this thing. There's a bunch of peer-reviewed papers that are going to end up at the AI Engineering World Fair. Cool. What is the ideal outcome in your mind for these researchers? I mean, okay, yeah, they stand in front of their poster and they talk, sure, but like what's the knock-on effect of that, and what does it like look like for them going forward? One thing that you could argue is that academics, for better or worse, don't get their ideas out very clearly. So maybe this is a way for people to kind of like hone their story or something like this. Like, what would be the ideal outcome for sort of like this research arm of the AI Engineering World Fair?
I just want good ideas to spread regardless of what format they're presented in. Sometimes they can be presented in a company, but sometimes they're just at the paper stage, and that's okay. I think that a lot of the people in the industry that would want to hear the ideas that are presented here will never come here. So let's bring the researchers to where they are, where I am. So if I can provide a venue for that, and most conferences in the industry do not, then I should, and I must.
So you're like, we just got to get it out there.
Yeah.
It was so fucking concise.
What?
Your answer.
Oh yeah. Thank you.
I'm jealous of you again.
But like, I think the last thing is the pace of AI is way faster than what the academic institutions can support. So in some ways, this is a sidestep around it. And so why not? Call it something less prestigious, but it's a faster iteration cycle, and therefore more people can get ideas circulated. So like, that's a good thing. There's a version of this where we end up making a full research conference, but I think research as a part of the industry thing makes sense. I would love your guidance on what to do next.
I don't think you should make a full research thing. I think you had a stroke of genius to put a little research thing inside of a big industrial thing. I haven't heard of somebody doing that. Has anybody else heard of like an industry conference with a little research poster session or research track?
Posters and posters. So people who post on Twitter and posting their tweets.
Posters and posters.
Yes, I think so. So like, there's always like these like blog post tracks, but they're always like less than. They're never featured on a full status as a paper. But let's realize that really good work comes in all forms. Sometimes as tweets, sometimes as blog posts. Sometimes you take the time to write it up as a paper, but not necessarily. So like, I just want to be a platform for that kind of stuff. If it's relevant to industry, we should feature it.
Final thing, because what Dave's big insight, Patterson on the Berkeley Labs, was bring industry into the research group every 6 months and get a bunch of feedback, which we're doing tomorrow over the next 3 days for Skylab. And this is basically get researchers to come in industry. It's like the same insight.
It's a hack. It's like everything I discovered in NeurIPS and all the other conferences, that they require exclusivity for 6 months. We do not.
There you go.
Right? So cut it down to 1 month and be non-exclusive.
You keep saying posters and posters, but then you have to explain the OA, right? Post.
Yeah. This is internet lingo for people who post well on Twitter. So they're called POST, like boasting, BOAST.
Boasters.
But they're
with a B.
POAST, yes.
Okay, you need to work on this. I'm going to give you a piece of feedback. Well, you need to evolve it because you're saying like posters and posters. We need a new name. I would like to humbly submit postas without the R at the end, where you spell it like posting. So like when you're standing next to your tweet, you're standing next to a posta, not a poster.
Got it.
What do you think?
I'm going to go with my thing.
Okay, well, fine.
Trust me on this one.
Your opinion. Okay, is that it? We're a wrap. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Fun.
It's always a pleasure.
Yeah.